Hi there guys, Sam here. Welcome back to an amazing Cayman GT4, and I'm with the owner here. Thank you so much for coming down in the adverse weather conditions. You'll see on the B-roll, the rain, the sun, we've had absolutely everything. So yeah, taking out and enjoyed a car like this. But yeah, this video, as you might have seen on my channel as well, I like to keep things in like the real world, you know, driving impressions and just how the ownership's kind of been. And yeah, that's kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today in your GT4. So yeah, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, how long have you owned 718 Cayman GT4?
Pretty much a year now.
Oh, nice.
Just had its very first MOT.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So when I met up with you last year, so yeah, you'd only owned it probably, what, a couple of months, 6 months?
Yeah, it was a few months in, probably 6 months.
Yeah.
Can't remember what month it was. Yeah, it must have been around 6 months.
So that was pretty special up Prescott Hill, and that kind of showed to me the capabilities of it. And as I kind of said to you, I'm a massive fan of Caymans, and I think I don't know why I haven't got one, to be honest with you. I'm probably in that kind of mode where it's like, you know, you kind of have that aspiration to get something for so long. Once you get it, it doesn't like meet up for it. So I'm sort of always like that, leave it on the side. I think even just spending time as a passenger of this, every time I get in, I just love it. I think it hits the sweet spot for so much. I think a lot of the 718 Cayman range is attainable as well. It's you can get into. I spent time in a 4RS, which perhaps is a little bit more
lucky.
Yeah, unattainable based on how Porsche go about in terms of allocations and things on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this one, so this is in gentian blue.
Gentian blue.
And
correct.
Again, great for kind of like that balance of, well, from my side, not massively showy, but not. But something interesting to look at as well, because it's metallic as well. It's got like a
well, you were just talking about torrential rain, but
I know,
stunning sunshine.
I'll put up clips as we're kind of talking, because I think I've hopefully got some decent footage of it, of the paint. And you said you've got a friend who's done some decent detailing, as well. Very good mate down in Dorset. Oh, nice.
Violeting Bros.
Oh, cool. I'll leave that. I'll leave it in the description.
He's done a absolutely sterling job. Like worked so hard, many hours. Is
it just like the way it kind of like strings off the paint then, and just like keeps itself clean and easy to maintain when you clean it? And
a couple of major benefits. Also encourage you to look back every time you park it up.
The classic car thing. I still do that with a Golf, regardless. It's a classic car guy kind of thing. Checking back into it.
Yeah.
No, it certainly pops. It's certainly something I would recommend on Caymans.
Anything, I think. I mean, the whole paint correction, ceramic coating, it just, for me, transforms my experience with the car. I just fall in love with the car. You know, you just can't stop looking at it. When it beads, you know, it doesn't get dirty anywhere near as much. I think it's a worthwhile investment on pretty much anything. I'm so like, basically, as I said to you before, I'm kind of personally, I'll clean the car myself. I've literally, other than, I think I'm the only person to have ever cleaned that car, because I had it practically from new as an ex-demo. Yeah. But yeah, I notice the difference on something like this. It proper pops. Yeah. And it's really special. So 9,500 miles. So how many miles have you kind of done in this one? I think it's about 5,000 now in the year. So yeah, it's gone quick. Yeah,
I was gonna say, well, that's a decent amount of mileage, to be fair. So what what would you say is kind of like the good things over the past year, or bad things, or things to like note for like people interested in getting one? Or
I think so. First ever one I drove. So I test drove this, bought it from JZM Porsche, Kings Langley.
Oh yeah, that's near me. Yeah, okay. They're like Porsche specialists, aren't they?
So many nice cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first ever one I've been in. But I was sold, obviously sold on it as soon as I saw the pictures, let alone got in the car. Yeah. I think, the moment for me sitting in, you immediately the centering of the driver to the console and all the controls was the first thing. I think the positioning is just something striking in a Porsche versus many other cars for me. And then obviously that comes into itself when you start driving. However, I think I kind of missed the point of the car initially, and I was saying to you earlier, I think it's only when you get on the right road, in the right revs, it all suddenly clicks. And until that point, you kind of think, oh, have I made the right call here?
Yeah.
It felt a bit, yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder if is that because it's quite a capable daily, potentially? It can be quite, because you can use it.
You can. And that's the other aspect. I think the damping on these, on a suspension is impressive. There's certain roads, you know, where I know it's cambered off or chunks missing, or you know the usual condition we're faced with.
UK.
I find this versus many other cars, you know, another car I wouldn't even think about going down a certain road. This, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
It's not dragging around. Obviously, depending on the setup you put on it, but yeah, that in itself, for something so firm and track capable, yeah, you can still enjoy those sorts of roads.
You can tell where the money's gone. It's expensive suspension. And is it in these GT4s you can actually manually adjust? I'm sure there's ways.
So there is adjustment.
You can if you wanted to, if you get it on a ramp, which is cool.
So this does have what they would label as a fast road geo.
Okay.
So it hasn't been shimmed. I know people go down changing arms and shimming and stuff like that to get, you know, more geometry on it. But for me, mainly for the road and for it to feel balanced and safe, you know, not track around everywhere and all sorts, it works really well. And I think out of the box they don't set them up
really. Okay, so it's worth getting the geometry kind of done on these kind of things.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what, I find that on a lot of cars as well. I've just had like 4-wheel alignment and stuff done on mine. It's so much more important for me to do those kind of things than to be doing, I don't know, if you put bigger power on your car or doing whatever you can to your car.
Yeah,
that's those little finer details, particularly if you're a driver and if you like a car like a Cayman, or you're thinking of a car like this. I think that's where kind of Porsche are just a little bit better. You can kind of have it set.
And again, it's getting the most out of the asset you already have, isn't it, rather than adding bits on or trying to get more.
It's already capable. It's already got the setup.
I mean, the fact is, you know, your braking is going to be impacted, your turning, your driver engagement, all of that, and that in itself gives you confidence. And then, you know, you just, it's step by step, you're just getting more out of the car.
Yeah, and definitely to enjoy it a lot more. So I'm fortunate. I've spent my life just driving Caymans. A lot of it has been not on my YouTube channel, to be fair. A lot of the 718s, a lot of the 981s. I'd definitely say the difference from a 981 GT4 to this definitely, the suspension's more compliant. It's better for road use. That the 981 was rock solid, and I mean, I'm not too sure, I can remember the clutch. The clutch on the
I've never tried it, but I remember reading about it.
It's because I had like a 90-minute track session in one, just absolutely caning it. Honestly, you feel it. It's the heavy. It's just so heavy. It's like I don't know. Best way to describe it is like some sort of just like truck, or just you are really having to strain. Which was, don't get me wrong, it's engaging. I can imagine on the road.
You just want to park up.
Whereas this, I think you can obviously you can get this in PDK as well.
You can.
I've spent a bit of time with it.
Which I understand is incredibly good,
appealing.
Obviously it's a more costly option. I wanted a manual. Just wanted a manual.
Well, it's almost like the console's set for manual as well. It's kind of the way it's raised, the way your seating position is. 981 was only manual. This is, I mean, it's a quick car, the PDK. I almost, and this is kind of subjectively for me speaking, I almost sometimes see like the GTS, the 4-litre. Maybe that's a better PDK one. Maybe if you're gonna go GT4, probably go for manual. And if if you're bad at heel and towing, I'm terrible at heel and towing. It's got rev matching.
It has the auto,
which may be controversial for some. Personally, for me, I'm like, you still get the enjoyment of it.
Interesting though, back to the experience factor. Gearbox. So first and second when it's cold. I know a lot of cars are similar until it's warmed up, but it was initially alarming. I thought, oh, have I got a problem here?
Oh wow.
Because sometimes you set off first gear, you go for second, no, go for second, okay, maybe it'll go in then.
Oh shit.
But apparently that's as per design. I know in GT4 Club as well, a number of other people saying the same thing, getting it reviewed under warranty. And yeah, they simply do say the same thing. It's as per design. And I think it's just to minimise the risk of the lower gear shifts.
Okay.
Supposedly, but in comparison to a friend's GTS, that was one of the first things I realised was just how easy the GTS gear shifts were.
Really?
It was completely different, and I don't know if this has got a short shift on it. I'm guessing, imagine it has, and that's obviously adding to the fact.
Yeah. It's definitely because it's shorter ratios, isn't it? I think in the GT4 to the GTS, you'll get more probably weights in the clutch. I'd probably say as well on these.
Yeah.
It's a hard debate because you mentioned the GTS as well. If you're looking at a 4-litre GTS or a 4-litre GT4, when I've sort of checked prices, there's not massive amounts in it. You could almost say better off going for the GT4. I love a GTS, though. Porsche seem to have the GTSs as like that real sweet spot you can just do everything with.
Yeah, the spec of them is lovely.
They look great, and maybe even you could think of it as like a touring. It doesn't have the wing.
Yeah.
So there's definitely positives in that regard.
Yeah.
But I mean, for you, was it always kind of like GT4? Like, did you have any options around the JZM?
Yeah.
Did you have any other options around there? Because they've got a load of plethora of Porsches.
No.
Is it just it?
Well, admittedly, I wouldn't mind a GT3 RS or something like that, but I think that's unreachable at the minute.
Yeah.
No, so to be fair, maybe I rushed, but I only thought about the GTS after.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And actually a friend when it got a GTS, and interestingly the experience of that, hearing the induction, the acceleration, I just thought, hang on a minute, have I made the wrong decision here?
Because essentially the same engine, and they've slightly, so 415 PS and then it's 395 I think in the GTS, so it's quite a small difference. But yeah, exactly the same. I know there's
obviously suspension, other differences, and obviously visually,
and
I guess for me visually that was one of the first attractions, and it being a GT and knowing what that gives you in terms of the engagement. I don't think I could do away without the rear spoiler. And I think as well as the spec as well, I'm not 100% sure, but I know Porsche were quite, sometimes you can't spec the buckets on certain ones. I don't know, although I have seen some which have it and I get confused. I'm not sure if they disallow it.
Just love the bucket seats. It's got to be done. Well, for me,
as soon as you open the door,
it's just one thing. I think just even with just like the carbon, the look, it's race car, it holds you in. You just feel like the car's got plenty of stability in itself, so for the driver to be actually stable is so crucial. It's unreal because certainly when I've driven sort of like a base 718, the seats in that you fall out. It's not holding you, and
again it's always that compromise, isn't it? I know we talked about earlier, clearly getting in and out of these is
you've got to be...
is a bit of an art to master. But it's not terrible. So I guess if you were using this for short trips, in and out, you'd get tired quite quickly, I think. However, then you'd question, surely I should have got the GTS if you're doing those sorts of trips, right? If you're in the long trip, you're less in and out, but then when you're in, I think they're really comfy.
A
lot of people say about the 918 seats being too upright. I get the point. I quite like being upright myself.
They're quite fixed, aren't they? They're a little bit adjustable, but
only on the height. And obviously the moving back and forth, but the back of the seat itself is obviously fixed.
You sit so low. It's like you can literally just get it just perfect, really. But once you sit in a car like this and then you sit in anything else, it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right.
Very alien. It's like getting back in the family car after.
Exactly.
feel like I'm on stilts, looking over everything.
And this is such like a raw car. Particularly, I mean, we're filming March 2024. Not a button can be found on the steering wheel.
No.
Manual gearbox. It's very much, you can just get in, foot on the clutch, and you can go. There's no sort of like you have to adjust things. Obviously, you can play around with your suspension, sports exhaust. Mention about your
the noisy
extra noise, which you'll hear. I'll show clips either at the end or in between as we're kind of talking, because it sounds amazing. but it's very analog, which I feel we're losing. Analog dials, just in that alone.
love traditional dials.
Yeah,
you know, seeing the needle move.
Yeah,
and like you said about the steering wheel, again, that was one of the noticeable things I didn't even realise there were buttons on for example, GTS.
Yep.
And after seeing that, just clicked to my mind, oh, hang on a minute. But then of course you read about it, and it's obviously all the, you know, user-centered design around, you know, Sports removing the complications, you know, making it just focused.
Yeah, exactly. You can really zone out, and like, I'm quite a person, if I go for a drive, sometimes you just turn off the radio, turn off everything, and you're focused on it. And like, even in my Golf R, I've still got the analog dials, and it's still a manual. You like the manual door pulls, I know they're not really massively saving weight, but it's part of that experience.
the stripped out kind of, but not stripped out.
And I'm guessing for you, so this would have been like an option to have that coloured in the same as the stitching.
Yeah, so stitching.
And is the wheel? Could you get different types of wheels? Or?
Do you know what? I'm not sure. Obviously, I didn't spec this from you.
It's a good spec.
But I definitely have seen others with different trim options.
Yeah.
You know, I've obviously got this brushed aluminium. Probably call it, and along here as well.
It's like leather, and then Alcantara.
And then obviously, really throughout
smart.
the leather, you've got the trim colour. So I know some other people have yellow, or I think red as well. So yeah, there are a few options. Some people have got carbon fibre rather than the brushed aluminium. You can obviously have things like embossed, you know, Porsche logos into the armrest, and you know, things like that. I would have liked the Club Sport, admittedly, which gives you the, you know, the cage, harnesses and extinguisher. But you know, I fell in love with this car, and I thought, do you know what, it would have been nice, but it wasn't a must. And then obviously I've gone for steel brakes purposefully. Ceramics, a lot of people do love, and I get that, but I think for the type of driving, and also I'd probably be scared if they got scratched and had to be replaced. And you know, steels perform very well in race cars, right? So you know, I thought they're more than capable. Very important one we mentioned earlier about the lights.
Oh yeah, PDLS, gotta go for it.
I think
any Cayman, just get it. Any 718 Cayman, I guarantee you, it's going to help you probably on resale as well, but also just the looks. And it falls, I'd say I'm relatively knowledgeable on my cars. You can this could be a 911 for all you know from the front. It's
always went in the rear view mirror, isn't it? When you see a Porsche coming up, no matter what model it is, it's what you spot.
Yeah, it's that it does, without them, it does sort of lower the quality. Amazing. It sounds like such a small thing. It's not, and I imagine they actually do perform pretty well at night. And
they're brilliant. Actually makes you want to go out at night time.
just for that.
The adaptivity, and they are fantastic. And it's got the auto full beam and stuff like that. So it's got the mod con still, which I like, and that was the other thing. 718 versus 981. I know the 981 is regarded the purest, and you know, you said about the clutch, I read about that. Obviously the lower tech, it's the noisier option by standard with the exhaust before the emission controls and stuff, but I think just those things like the tech and stuff, that alone for me, it's just a must have. I would have got tired with the old.
It has actually done a nice improvement. It's like a nice nip and tuck. And I would say the 718 looks nicer than 981. I think the 981 is now
it's a debate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's because if you'd asked me that like 5 years ago, I'd have gone like, oh, nothing. But maybe I'm getting older as well. I'm just suddenly like, well, actually, and I don't see another naturally aspirated Cayman coming out with a newer design than this one, if that makes sense. So this feels like the last of its breed. Yeah,
I mean, for me, like, you know, the rear, that for me.
Record.
Definitely the better on the 718.
Yeah.
You know, again, other people would argue against it. You know, and just things like the front lip as well. Yeah. Just little details like this. For me, again, I prefer the more modern look.
Yeah, it does feel. I mean, from what one of the reasons why I like Porsches as well is they've got sort of that ability to turn into like a Golf-like ability of working on the road. Really well built. You can sort of daily about it, perhaps harder in a GT kind of product.
Mm-hmm.
But that then helps if you want to go to like an event, like you go to lots of events as well, whether it's Cafe in the Machine or an owners club or anything. You want your car to then work, and then to do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll have to ask you. There's never really a point where you're not thinking this is not going to start in your garage. You're going to be able to take it out. You've got something coming on a Sunday.
Not.
Yeah, it's been pretty solid.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about Porsche reliability, and I think they're fantastic cars. You don't really worry too much about them like you would with a McLaren or something like that. But again, that's probably opening a can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the McLaren debate. The only thing that I've seen before, and it had it on the GT4 RS I tried, is they often say like the oil you have to kind of top up. Is that something that you've had to do, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean obviously it's high revving car, right?
So it just drinks more, basically.
Yeah, and again in the forums and stuff, people talk about different levels, but then you don't know their driving style and how they people can talk about driving hard, but have they driven equally? So I have had to put probably in my ownership a litre in at differing stages. Keep an eye on it. It is just an electronic level control, which is a bit weird, to be quite honest, because sometimes it doesn't read, and apparently in the handbook it talks about perfect conditions. Sometimes it still doesn't want to tell you.
Okay.
But when you see it, it's just a min max, and it's a litre difference between them. And then the filling process is a bit odd.
It's quite funny. For so many years, I actually used to think that they were speakers. I used to think it was like some sort of subwoofer or something.
I get it, yeah.
But it's not, is it? That's one
coolant on one and oil on the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the filling process, I mean, there are people that overfill, and then obviously that's a pain. So it's just a bit of patience. And the thing is, you have to put it a bit in, put it all down, and actually close the boot and get back to those perfect conditions to allow the readout again. Yeah. Right. So, it's just taking your time, and don't go too crazy with it.
Yeah, and be kind of mindful of what you've got. Can you actually adjust the rear wing as well?
Yes.
I'm just looking at the back, because we were talking before. You can actually obviously adjust the suspension, adjust the rear wing.
So there is obviously the level of downforce for the style of driving and the more aggressive look people talk about. So there's I believe there's 2 levels of adjustment. That's in the standard form. You can put it in a more aggressive form, so tilted back up more, which then obviously impacts your rear view vision. Some prefer the look of it. It would obviously degrade your fuel performance if you're worried about that.
Yeah, because the draggier you are.
But then also equal with that, there's some front plastic elements under the car, so you would do the 2 combined. Okay, and again, that's a handbook item.
Right.
And I was actually watching a video on it the other day. But I know some people that have been down that road and they've tried it out. People that have done back-to-back track days, before and after, and they do suggest quite a bit of difference.
I think, and that's something that you don't have to option anything on this car. It's there to be kind of played around with in that sense, and make sure you find, I guess, the right kind of place to adjust it. Would you say you could go to Porsche for that,
or would something you can do at home? To be fair, I mean, again, it's a handbook instruction item. It's something that as a GT product, they're supportive of making these changes. I mean, obviously a lot of people would go to a Porsche specialist or a certain setup place to do those things, but I think it's with a bit of knowledge and being careful and with the right tools, it looks very straightforward.
No, definitely. Like, I've always been obsessed with like some Manti racing, and you've seen like the setups that they can do and the MR kits and things. And whenever I've seen stuff on that, I just think of, well, the one thing I would do is just go in there and get like a Geo setup. That's where I would be looking at, rather than anything more.
And I'm pretty sure, going back to the Fast Road Geo I've had applied by JZM, because they're Manti qualified.
Oh, nice.
So they apply the principles from that training, and I know obviously the next levels you can swap out to the Manti suspension arms and all that sort of stuff, but I don't think I'll go to that route.
And I think that kind of then takes it into a little well, I'm going to say it takes it more uncomfortable for daily use.
Exactly. So again, it's that compromise, isn't it? Do you want maximum attack on the track?
Yeah.
And then you try and get the best out of it by going down those routes. But for me, like I say, I probably wouldn't.
Awesome. So what would you say is like anything that you think would be quite bad about the car, or if someone was actually thinking of getting this, which you would say, oh, you know, just be wary of this and that? I'll start off with the bad because there's more good.
I think going back to that point earlier, it's figuring out what kind of drives you're actually going to do.
Yeah.
And making a firm choice between, you know, whether it be GTS, GT4. Because I think, you know, yeah, okay, visually GT4 you might be, yeah, okay, I love it. But realistically, the cost saving potential of a GTS and getting similar rewards could actually tick the boxes. So I think that's one thing. I think the point I said earlier about the having the right drive. Don't get into a rhythm of doing normal drives.
Yeah.
I personally, I think you'd get just quite tired of it, and because it wouldn't be clicking, delivering the value it should be. And then a really random one I said to you earlier about this handbrake.
Yeah,
electronic handbrake.
I've heard this a few times as well.
But I think it's on modern cars now, where it does the auto hold, and you can't control the auto hold as well. Somebody may tell me different. I've not read the manual carefully enough, but if you're on a hill and then you've got to do a hill start and it's a junction perhaps, I have actually stalled it once.
I can imagine.
And then I've realised just seems you've got to give it a lot of beans. Which equally doesn't seem right, but it's the only way it seems to then release. But anyway, it's just a bit of an odd thing. But no, bad things. Can't really call out anything. They're very I think buying advisory elements, and nothing bad in that.
And I imagine if you're kind of watching this, you kind of like the car. I don't think there's nothing about, from my side, I'd say I could not recommend. Okay, I could recommend all of them. I mean, I'm interested to know your thoughts on the turbocharged ones, the 4-cylinder. Are you would you say not worth it, or would you say try and go for an NA?
I think you've got to try it out. Again, everyone's got a different preference, haven't they? And again, I think the type of driving will dictate. So I think this is that raw, on the right road, twisties, getting up and down the revs in the box and all that, comes into itself on a normally aspirated motor. I think the you know, obviously by virtue of having a turbo, it's more lazy power, right? And that in itself can take away some of the experience, but equally, you know, it can give a good experience because it's that boost. So I like both. But again, if you're doing certain types of driving where it's, you know, kind of constant start stops, clearly turbo is coming in nicely, and then you're not so tired out from using the revs. Right,
GoPro overheated, but we'll summarize it just with like some of the final kind of good points. If you're someone who's actually looking right now and they're thinking about a 718, they're thinking about maybe even the rivals like the Alpine A110, I don't really know what, there's not that, I suppose BMW M2 could be a rival as well, and you've got the new Lotus as well. Would you say that's kind of in category of rival?
No, definitely power wise, and I think looks and all that sort of stuff.
So good points that would say that you found from this car over a full year, really, I guess. I'm good. Start off straight away with the seats. You've got to go for these seats. If you're getting a GT car, they're so good. But you go.
I think styling.
Yeah.
For me, styling of the car is just on point.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously it's going to be subjective for people in it, but it's a good looking car. You're not going to be disappointed kind of rolling up in this, and particularly if you spec it in this kind of way. And you know, I mean, I don't think there's a bad colour, but I'd probably look for going something. Well, you could even go, like, even the yellows and stuff look pretty good, pretty leery.
Do you know what? I opted away from things like yellow, white, red. I think purely from a resale perspective, I think the suggestion was they weren't as sellable.
Yeah, and I've seen that online as well. If you look at cars, you could suddenly see the odd Viper Green or the Ruby Star, which look like decent colours. But yeah, it's going to be a specific, more extrovert type person, which to go for. That's actually definitely another good point, which is why I loved them. Residuals are just ridiculous, really. That's a big point of it. In fact, I know when these first came out, they were significantly above what they were kind of worth. So, and it's a big part of car ownership. You can then put that money into going on road trips and going on events.
Exactly.
Whereas others, it doesn't quite work like that. And like, sadly, like I've spent a bit of time in the new M2. You know, that it will just lose a lot of money just straight off the bat. I have checked online, and it's like they're sort of just over 50 grand. I know that sort of spec, it's 65 grand. They've only just come out. It's not a happy day.
Then I guess also the car market at the minute is a bit bonkers, isn't it?
It's a bit up and down, more down at the moment, but then we had that kind of high heights. But I had a quick look online, and I think mid 70s is still kind of like for a GT4.
I know somebody who just bought one in the last month or so, and it was in that kind of price range.
Which I mean, wasn't that what it cost new? Were they 77 new?
Do you know, I can't remember what they, I mean, obviously with
depends on spec, with buckets and everything.
I think spec is, wasn't it more near the 100?
Once you go in
500.
Is it 5-6 grand?
Is it? I couldn't tell you. Sounds about right. I mean, like I say, even things like the lights, I think they were
PDLS kind of adds in.
Expensive option.
And a good way to, I always check on like 981 GT4s. They're kind of like a good benchmark. They're still always around 60. They were 60 back in 2016.
They've held so well.
It's held so well, and the whole Porsche range tends to do quite well, particularly in this model segment as well. Because you're never, like, a GT4 is never going to be worth less than a GTS. GTS is never going to be worth less than, say, a normal T or anything. So if you kind of look at that kind of barometer, you're only ever going to lose so much. I think of it like my Golf R. Is it ever going to be worth less than an equivalent GTI? Probably not. And well, that's what goes in my head as well, because it's got to work economically too. So it's like those, so many thumbs up of it. It drives really well.
It's all about the experience, isn't it?
Is it, out of interest, is it the best car you've owned, out of interest? I mean,
without a doubt.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, that kind of says a lot.
I mean, I have had one other Porsche. That was a 996 Turbo.
Oh, nice.
With an aero kit. So again, visual. Obviously, there's a bit of a theme here. I like the look factor, and that's what draws me in. But again, that was obviously twin turbo, very punchy, very quick. But yeah, that raw power. I think this just feels next level. I know it's more modern, but I don't know, where I'm seated, it just feels such a nicer place. And clearly the experience as you get going is a lot different as well. It's
definitely great. And the one thing you'd recommend is the exhaust kind of stuff.
Oh yes. I mean, everyone talks about the OAPs, the over axle pipes. With a switchable valve, it transforms your experience and brings a big smile. It
makes a difference, and I'll show it here. I mean, I could talk forever about this kind of car, and I'm sure you could too. But I think overall it's a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about it. I'll be happy to help you out. I've got plenty of experience in this, and we can kind of go from there. And I'm probably going to end it just recording it, showing how it can get over ridiculously angular bumps. So you can actually use it if you want to go to a nice event and enjoy your car. But thanks so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks for coming down as well, and plenty more happy miles to come as well.
Of course.
Awesome.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Look at the sun now. Oh yeah, that's all right actually. Right, I'll see you later, man. Take it easy.